Christopher, thank you so much. More love for the magnificent band we've got going on here. We have the best. We really do. We have the best. We have the best congregants. We have the best music. We have the best programs, teachings, classes. We have it all. We have it all. Thank you. Oh, so much to be grateful for today. This amazing music, and we've got a beautiful couple that is now engaged. So I'm just going to shine a little bit more love on Caroline and Jeff. As we just take a moment, we're going to give you don't need this blessing, but this is called glory to greater. From the day I saw you two, I was like, oh my, this they're happening. They are happening. So it's on, it's good. You don't need the blessing. Glory to greater glory is what this is called, because we're going to bless you anyway. So just take our hands and we're going to extend our heart and our prayers through our hands, and we're going to bless Caroline and Jeff, just knowing that where they are, brilliance is, good is, God is, love is, that they have said yes to God, loving God through and as two people, rejoicing in this. We bless their journey. We bless this engagement. We let the ceremony and the wedding be just so smooth and silky and beautiful and benevolent beyond their wildest dreams. Every aspect of it, we bless their body temples with wellness. We bless their body of affairs with harmony. We give them all the love and all the light for this fantastic voyage of the divine that they are sharing together. And it is from a place of gratitude and thanksgiving that we bless them, and we let it be by saying so it is. Amen. We have more to be grateful for, because we are grateful. David, who's resting there in the corner, we are so grateful to have you back. We love you, we love you, we love you, we love you. I'm so grateful you're here. Thank you for being here today and shining your light with us. Oh, so good, so good. What do we have here? Love is always the answer. We know that that's the truth. We know that love is always the answer as we finish out the month on that wave, and we allow that wave to continue to ripple and roll through the rest of our lives. Is everybody here ready to transform? To transform your life? You've heard it before. We are here to transform. You are not here to stay the same. If you were to stay the same, that would be kind of an admission of mediocrity, of settling, and we don't want to settle. We want to expand, and so we're going to define, because we know that everything in our life that we experience is predicated on the definitions that we have coded and loaded, that we chose, that we put in our beingness. So we want to be very conscious of those definitions. We have to redefine and re-choose and analyze. We want to be spiritually proactive in our lives, because if you're living your life on the deferment plan or the determined plan, that means that there are certain things that you just don't want to deal with. And the topic for today, the topic is extraordinary grace. Now, grace by unto itself is extraordinary. It is one of the most amazing experiences you can have from the human perspective, because grace is the anointing of God upon you that allows you to feel and know in your bones that love truly is all there is, that God is all there is. There's an omnipotence. In our teachings, we talk about the omnipotence of God, meaning that the potency of God, the strength of grace, the strength of beauty, the strength of joy, the eternal energies of life, of which that is all there is. The transitory energies, the illusionary energies of fear, worry, doubt, shame, guilt, anger, those are illusionary, transitory energies, and they give us the feeling of separation. They give us the feeling as though there isn't love, that there isn't understanding, that there isn't oneness, that there isn't compassion. Those are illusionary, and those illusionary, the way they become an illusion that seems somewhat real, it's like kind of, those virtual reality goggles that we all have to start to unlearn and take those virtual reality goggles off when they're showing us things of separation, like unforgiveness. Because grace is just the natural byproduct of a life when you are in the realization state, in self-realized state of oneness with spirit, of oneness with your own magnificence. But if we are allowing ourselves to be spiritually proactive, which means sometimes people get a false sense of good in their life. Like things are kind of going good, so I don't need to do anything. Nobody's yelling at me, I paid my bills, I took a little trip somewhere, something like that, and so nothing bad is happening. But if you were to step back and really be spiritually proactive and take a temperature reading, which means in order to do this, we move into our spiritual practices, our spiritual practice of meditation. The reason we move in, because that's where you can take a temperature. When you're all busied and going on about your day, and you've gotten caught up in some of the illusionary, transitory, and race-conscious energies of what's going on in the world, what's going on in Washington, what's going on in this community or that community or with these people or those people, because we know there are no these people and those people. We know that there are all of these situations that are happening out in the world that we see in the world. We're seeing through the filter of every choice that we've made. And it is very compelling sometimes to think that what we see, because if you imagine, how everybody has a different perspective. Everybody was to watch a certain situation and everybody kind of walks away and like, oh, did you hear that? Did you see that? And everybody's got like kind of a different slant on it. That's because it's coming through your filters. And the filters are the very things that we want to be proactive about. We want to get in there and clean the filters. And so when we're in a false state of good, which is kind of like when we're in a false state, we do things like we want to go to pleasure. Pleasure is one of those things where it's like we want to feel good, but we want it to be authentic. It's kind of like the difference between joy and happiness. Happiness is predicated on things being a certain way. And if it aligns with the way our ego would like it to be, then we're happy. Joy is pure. You're in grace. You're in God. You're in your divine self. So no matter what's going on, you're good. Happiness is predicated on the transitory, illusionary energies that, okay, if this, then I'll be happy. And so we want to let go of that paradigm and move into the spiritual proactivity of our own divine nature, and to know that what is extraordinary about grace is that we want to cultivate it in an extraordinary way. We have to be extraordinary, because ordinary cultivates what we've already been doing. And so if things are good, then we're grateful. We're super grateful that things are good. And then we want to, like as we're doing with Caroline and Jeff, I know that it's already good. But glory to greater glory. Glory to greater glory. Because I will tell you, when you take that spiritual temperature, when you poke it in and you see what's going on, you're going to find out that you've been settling for certain things, that you've settled for a level of mediocrity in your life, that when you move above it, you think, oh my goodness, I can't believe that. And I'm a living example of that. I'm an open book. I have absolutely nothing to hide, which is completely different than the way I used to be. I used to be one of those secretive people. I didn't want people to know. I thought people were always judging me, and because I was always judging people. So if you're worried that people are judging you, then that's what's happening. Hate to break the news to you, but that's one of the things that we want to do. Is we want to become so self-aware and be open to grace, which means we have to slow down. It's really compelling. We're in kind of a society that likes to go fast, get more money, more fun, more time, And then we end up saying things like, I don't have enough time and I don't have enough money. And it's like, well, if we want to open up to the principles that we espouse, the omnipotence of God, the omnipresence of God, meaning that God is, there's no place you can go where the presence of grace and glory of God is not. You cannot go anywhere. You could go all the way to the Andromeda constellation and you would be with God. You can go all the way to the center of earth and you will be with God. No matter where you go, God is. But to the degree that you feel the presence is through the choices that we make. And so we want to choose our right, and we want to reflect on those. We also want to connect with the omniscience of God, the all-knowingness of God, because we have that coded and loaded within us all too. Any answer to any question you could ever have is already available to you through you. You can access that, but again, it takes being still. It takes turning within so that we can open up to that fertile field. And so we want to allow ourselves to do that, to also know that what that does is it goes from the omnipresence to the omniscience to the omniactive, where it starts to be an expression. So I want you to just imagine, you've heard me say this before, I think it was last year or something like that. This is one of my favorite pray dreams. I love to pray dream about just like all the wildness and magnificence of the universe. And one of those pray dreams is to kind of imagine that you have no issues, not one issue, nothing, no limitation, no lack of any kind. You have no money issues, not one money issue. Any drop of money you could ever need is upon you. It is at hand. You feel your connection to Source. You feel what we espouse in our teachings, that the unlimited benevolent supply of good in God as anything and everything that you need is upon you. It is upon you. You have no relationship issues. You love everyone. You love everyone. You don't have one issue with anybody. You have no issues with family members, no issues with strangers, no issues with friends, no issues with those that we call homeless people. You have no issues with the government. You have no issues with any government officials. You love everything and everyone. You love them because you see beyond their personality. You see their essence. So you have no relationship issues. As a matter of fact, everybody who sees you, because it's a bi-directional field, comes to you and they love you and they hug you. You're allowing that. You have no creative issues. You have everything, anything it just downloads. If you were a writer, it'd be like, you'd just be writing away. If you're a painter, it'd just be shh. If you're a musician, it's like, oh my God, I can't even stop the music coming through me. It just keeps going, and you just allow that. You have no creative issues, you have no money issues, you have no relationship issues, you have no time issues. Oh my God, you have all the time in the world. What do I do with all this time? Oh my God. I'm just enjoying all these adventures and just having so much fun. I feel the timelessness of God is upon me. I feel the infinite nature. So you have no time issues. You have no issues whatsoever. You have no wellness issues. Your body temple radiates wellness. Every muscle, bone, tissue, organ radiates wellness. Well, that is the perfect blueprint that exists within you right now. Yes. It exists within you right now. It exists within me right now. And when we choose to activate that, which is by using grace, by reflecting, and by being spiritually proactive, and not deferring or deterring. And so I had a client recently, and she experienced a profound sense of grace. We were walking on some real eggshells for a moment, because one of the things that I work with people the most on, most of you know I do energy work and energy healing, and it's all steeped in the living prayer field of allowing certain things to flow through your body. And you don't have to relive trauma. You can just release it. It can be very passive, it can be very beautiful. But you do have to choose it. So I would say probably at least, minimally 50% of my job is getting people to choose to choose the right prayer request. Because oftentimes we're asking for the very thing that's going to cause so much pain and suffering in our lives. If we're choosing from the surface mind, or if God forbid, you are choosing from your trauma. The trauma is the very thing we're trying to transmute. That's the very thing we're giving to God. We give the trauma to God. That is our job in the human experience. All of those lifetimes and all of those adventures and all those trials and tribulations, like the prodigal son who went out and did all the crazy stuff. And it's like when you go out and you do it, it's like you're gathering all this trauma. Oh, you're gathering hatred, you're gathering the ailments, you're gathering all these things on this adventure because you're wanting to experience duality. And then at some point you realize, oh my God, I'm so burdened. And so I can't even move with all this trauma that I've got going on. And then we start to release the trauma. And we start to transmute the trauma. But the trauma has coded beliefs. And in the human experience, we're governed by our belief system, of which every belief we have, we chose. And so we have to unchoose and re-choose. If we are being on the deferment plan, then we kind of well, I'm having a good day. I don't need to do any spiritual housekeeping. I don't need to pray. I don't need to meditate. I don't need to do any of those things. Because it's it's pretty good. I'm just going to eat some bonbons and watch some TV. And it's this is all good, right? No! I mean, you can. I suppose you can make that spiritual too. Pray while you're eating your bonbons. Watching the Housewives of whatever it is. Absorbing trauma and drama. So, any of those shows that you choose to watch, if you're going to indulge upon them, just be ready to go into a great state, of prayer and meditation and really, especially if you're going to watch the news, you want to make sure that you're all prayed up when you're watching the news. Because you don't want any of those race conscious ideas and all of that like voodoo coming in and trying to convince you that something is bad and wrong. And it's like, and I'm making light of it because we do want to make light of things. But we also want to be very conscious of when it's time to kind of be in that centered place. It's like, oh, okay, well, what do we do about the shooting in Florida? What do I do from a spiritually awakened, conscious perspective? And so we do want to be still and find out, okay, because sometimes the ego would have me like jump in and I got to start doing all these things and and I might be inadvertently creating some things in my awake that might be ticking some people off or something like that. And that's fine. That's fine. Sometimes people need to be ticked off. That's part of waking up. But there is a way to do anything and everything through grace, where in your wake you just leave we can wake people up, and we don't have to disturb them. We don't have to shake up the hornet's nest and get everything all. We can do it really beautifully. And so what we want to do is we want to start to recognize and use our spiritual mastery to simply reflect on, well, what is my job about this? And one of the first and foremost things that our job is to bring it into our consciousness. Our consciousness is where everything takes place. And so we want to become, and I'm not talking about surface mind consciousness, because the surface mind consciousness, oh, you're conscious, you're awake, right? No, that's the surface mind. The surface mind is trying to interpret what's going on in the subconscious, and then 9 times out of 10, it's misinterpreting what the subconscious has, because the subconscious is the database for all of your beliefs. It is the database for all of your trauma. It's the trauma body is associated with the subconscious. But your super consciousness, when your surface consciousness merges with your super consciousness, then you can transform your subconsciousness. And that's what we're all about. We're all about bringing the omniscience of God, the omnipotence of God, the omnipresence of God, and the omni-amorous nature, because we know that God is love, pure love beyond our wildest dreams, and we want to let that in. So I'm going to ask you to just take a moment with me. We're just going to take a breath, just a nice deep breath of beauty. Now, was that hard? Was that difficult? One of the things that we can do as we start to become aware of our body is your breathing is a great barometer of what's going on. And so if I'm in a shallow breath, like I'm really shallow, then I'm probably holding on to something. We want our breath to become deeper and fuller, and so that's what happens when you go into meditation, is that you start to feel the breath becoming fuller and deeper. For those of you who were here for meditation this morning, it's super easy. You heard me say it a few weeks ago. It's like anybody who's like, oh, it's so hard for me to meditate. No, it's not hard. No, we're going to get rid of that because it's super easy. You just sit there. You just relax. You allow yourself to be open to the holy inspiration of God to flood and fill you. It's more of who you are than anything else. And so we want to be open to this and know that that the grace we are seeking already resides within and around us. And so when we start to breathe into that, we can allow that to be. So I had this client, and she was... basically, she had a lot of trauma from her childhood with her siblings. Her siblings were really, her entire family, according to her story, was that they were horrible. And they were always blaming, complaining, and traumatizing her. And there was a lot of verbal abuse. And so she came to me, and she was wanting to transform things in her life to allow more intimacy, allow more good, allow more confidence as she's stepping into this new area of her life. And so she told me that she had just been to visit her sister just the week before, and that her sister just railed, just was yelling and screaming at her and all these things. And so we know we know that most of the time when that happens, that's projection. That is the person themselves projecting all of their fears, worries, doubts, and concerns onto somebody else in blame and shame and anger. And so, but that doesn't do us a whole lot of good to know that. That doesn't necessarily set us free. We want to be set free. We want to be inoculated. We would, recently with all of the talk about vaccines and everything, the one vaccine that we want the divine vaccine, the inoculation from God that allows us to do, as Don Miguel Ruiz always says, do not take it personally. But rationalizing is not the way we don't want to take it personally, because rationalizing is a recipe for resentment. Surrendering is the way that we inoculate ourselves. We want to be divinely inoculated and allow that energy to flow through us, that we are impervious to the world of effects. And so she was telling me about how she had just been to go see her sister, and so she finally just said, you know what, that's it, I'm done, I can't take this anymore. And she told her sister, I'm leaving, and I don't want you to talk to me like this anymore. So she's kind of taking a stand for herself and saying, okay, so she's pretty much saying that, like, I'm done with this. And so as I'm hearing this story, I'm like, okay, this is the part where I'm gonna have to walk on some eggshells here, because I gotta get her to the point where we can allow grace by the vehicle of forgiveness to transform all of this. Because there's something within her beingness, there's something with any of our beingness, that there's nothing that happens from out here to us unless we believe it or know it to be. And so I could tell there was a little trepidation. She didn't really want to go there with the forgiveness things, like, no, I'm not ready. And that's okay. Sometimes we're not ready for those things. As long as you're aware that you're not ready for something, but you're ready to be ready for something, then we're good. We're good. If you're aware that you're not ready for something and you don't want to be ready for something, then you're setting up a recipe for deferment and also for frustration. Because I can tell you, after living years and years of deferring, I used to be the king of, why do today what you can do tomorrow? And it's like, nah, we don't want to do that. We want to take care of today. Spiritually proactive people take care of it today in fun and joyous ways. And that's what grace is about, because grace is where you feel, oh my God, I didn't have to do any of this work, so I finally got her. And we got her to the place where she's like, okay. Because when I was saying that we want to allow forgiveness, she had somehow, it was coming through the filter that she was setting herself up to be abused again. I was like, no. I said, you don't have to do anything. All we're going to do is we're going to invite God, we're going to invite truth, we're going to invite the energy of forgiveness to go before us and make the crooked path straight. To tear down the gates of brass and to break through the bars of iron, as it says in Scripture. That's what's happening in Scripture. In that passage, we're talking about letting God, letting the energy, the quality of God that's known as forgiveness do the work. So she finally said, okay, and then we finished our session and we did our prayer, and then she called me, I think it was later that evening, and she's like, you're not going to believe it. My sister, she called me straight away. She left this big, long message about how much she's so sorry. She totally understands that it's really all of her thing. She took full responsibility, and she was like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. She was on cloud 9. She was experiencing grace. And that is what I want to bring upon us. And so we're going to close here with, there's one of the formulas that you can use to bring forward grace. And that is that you want to invite it. You invite God into your life. If you're not inviting God into your life, if you aren't in that omnipresent stage of enlightenment where you're blissed out of your gourd 24/7 and you no longer need to invite God, then we invite God. And then we evoke the energy. We call it forward. And then probably most importantly, we allow it. Because if you call something forward and then you don't allow it, you will also be frustrated. And so we don't want to do that. We want to comply with the holy light of God. And so we invite it, we evoke it, we allow it. So we are going to invite and evoke and allow God's extraordinary truth of blessings upon us. And the way that's going to look is, you're going to turn to your neighbor, and just like we did a few weeks ago, we're going to bestow blessings, but we're going to do it just hair a bit different. We're going to first evoke the blessing for ourselves, and again, if you're sitting next to someone, or you're in an odd number, you can either do it as a trio, or you might have to turn to the person in the row behind you or in front of you or something like that. But you just want to turn to the person, and we're just going to say to each other as we look into each other's eyes, I bless myself with the freedom of grace. I bless you with the freedom of grace. I bless myself with truth and divine illumination. I bless you with truth and divine illumination. I bless myself with extraordinary, radiant wellness. And I bless you with extraordinary, radiant wellness. And I bless myself with benevolent, abundant prosperity and joy. Benevolent, abundant prosperity and joy. Make it through one more time, because I bless you with benevolent, abundant prosperity and joy. And so we accept it, and so we let it be. Amen. Amen. Ashe. Aho. Shalom. And Hotep. And so it is. I think it's time for, you know what, to breathe that in. It's always good to breathe it in and let that get down into your feet, into your bones. Into your bones. I'm a bones man. All right, I think, are we ushers or are we music? We're ushers. We're calling forward the ushers. So as we prepare our tithe, as we move into our conscious time of tithing and giving, knowing that all of us are in agreement. We're all in agreement. Whatever we tithe, especially if we create a vibratory field of tithing, the field that's as we are tithing, we are allowing it to come back to us minimally tenfold. We allow it to come back benevolently, beautifully, elegantly, and perfectly tenfold. And so we take time, we bless as the ushers move forward, and we allow ourselves to participate in the art of circulation. If you're watching online, please go to soulcenteroc.com and scroll down and press the donate button. Or if you want to text, you can dial 669-342-2157 for anybody who's streaming or online, or otherwise if you're just driving around.